Welcome to this week's Single Sales Principle webinar. Today is within the perceived value part of SSP and very much how to get from no to yes, the art of negotiating but without having to give in. And very much we're going to be using the content of the book Getting to Yes, which is written by Roger Fisher and William Ury, both of the Harvard Business School. So their discussion is very much around the challenge that you have with positional bargaining, the more conventional style of negotiating, and what they call principled negotiation. So let's take a look at a video which I think highlights some of the classic issues with negotiating within a business context, which you wouldn't really see in everyday normal life.
Hi.
Is there a problem, sir?
Yes. A quick question about the final total.
Yes.
You see, yeah, we didn't budget for this.
Excuse me?
This was marked 1999.
Yeah.
Well, I've only got $7 set aside for this.
So what are we gonna do today?
Well, I'd like the highlights, but for now I can only pay for a trim.
Okay, so today we're only gonna do the trim?
No, the highlights, but I can only pay for the trim.
I mean, how much of the taco stand was what?
About $12.
Yeah, right. About $12.
Sir, we're not the taco stand.
No, it was. I had beef, same thing as I had here.
You had the filet.
Yeah, cow.
Okay, let me make a phone call, see what I can do. Maybe I can get you $8.50. Can you do $8.50?
I'll pay for the highlights next time, but for now I need you to just go ahead and throw them in.
So basically you want me to work for free?
No, I don't want you to work for free. It's just a test. That way I can see if my husband likes it, and then you can roll the cost over until the next time I need color if he likes it.
I went through in line items some of the stuff that we wouldn't just remove.
I'm not making any money on this either. You gotta help me out.
We got a discount bin.
I know, I've checked the discount bin, but I want this one. We can do this. This is not a challenge. This is an opportunity.
We tried, what, three entrees?
Oh, yes. You ordered 3 entrees, sir.
Yeah, well, we ordered, but does order mean eating? Yeah, we want stuff.
What's your name?
Todd.
Todd. You gotta work with me.
That one's $19.99.
Mike, come on, let's do this. Let's do this.
Dude.
Well, I can cover your hard costs, but that's really as far as I'm willing to go.
I'll give you $8.50 today. I'll come back next Tuesday. We're gonna make it up on the next one. What do you say?
What?
Excellent. Well, go ahead and we'll pay this time, but what we're gonna need you to do is show us how you made it, so we can do it on our own in-house from now on. You did? It's a great dinner.
So, fairly amusing, wouldn't really happen. Well, it does, doesn't it? It happens all the time in a business context, but we just kind of put up with it. So, within the book, they talk about 5 problems with positional bargaining. And the first one is that you tend to lock yourself into a position. And once you've locked yourself in that position, you start to have to defend that position because you put yourself there in the first place. And as you start to defend that position, your ego starts to take over. So instead of focusing on the issue, the problem, and a mutual outcome, you start to present your ego. And it's now become a win-lose situation. And you certainly don't want to lose. So your ego starts to take over the situation. Okay? So, number 1 problem is don't lock yourself into this position, because once you do, you're almost backing yourself into a corner, which is then very difficult to come back from. Number 2, it is inefficient to have positional bargaining. It can take a lot of time with you at that end, them at that end, and starting to sort of come down slowly, gradually. And of course, in doing that, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of rational effort, but emotional effort on both sides as well. And of course, within all of this, that can start to cost. Third problem, it can start to endanger the relationship between both parties. particularly depending on the type of individual that you are. Obviously on the program, we talk about the insights colours. And if you're at the feeling end of the spectrum, then i.e. feeling in terms of earth green or sunshine yellow, there is a danger that when the other person starts to get a bit heavy, then you can feel a touch resentment about the fact you've had to compromise your position. The fourth problem is that it's all well and good saying, I start here, you start there, let's meet in the middle. But when there are more people involved, it becomes more and more difficult to get that agreement because they may not be in the same room, or they may have their opinions about where the position should start and where the walkaway point may be, which is different to your opinion. And of course, this side have got the same thing going on as well. So it starts to become increasingly difficult to actually get an agreement, even on the same side. Number 5, being nice doesn't help. In fact, in negotiation, being nice is positively a hindrance. They've done a lot of study around this, whereby they've got a hard negotiation style and a soft negotiation style. And when they come up against each other, invariably the hard negotiation style in Insight's what we would call the fiery red persona. This fiery red hard negotiation style typically will win the day. The problem with that, as we said earlier, it can start to endanger the relationship between those two parties. So let's take a look at the different way that the soft and the hard side tend to position themselves and the way that they view different areas in terms of participants, relationship, position, resolution and criteria. So for our soft side in terms of participants, they tend to see them as friends, whereas with the hard, they see them as adversaries. With relationships, they're soft on the people and the problem. With hard, they're hard on the people and the problem. Position, they tend to change their positions relatively quickly and also easily, where with the hard, they tend to dig into their position. On resolution, they search for the answer that they will accept, i.e. the other side, whereas hard, they search for the answer that you will accept, i.e. the other side. Criteria, they yield to pressure, whereas with hard, they're the ones applying the pressure. So we talk a lot about the two areas of negotiation, the substance, i.e. the issue, i.e. what we're trying to negotiate over, and the relationship. So in summary, the soft tends to be quite low in terms of focusing on the substance, but quite high in terms of nurturing the relationship. Whereas with hard, kind of the other way around, very high on what the substance is without too much thought or attention on how it is affecting the relationship. So what does this look like in terms of principled negotiation? Well, in terms of participants, rather than friends or adversaries, they are seen as problem solvers. In terms of relationship, instead of soft on the people or hard on the person or soft on the problem or hard on the problem, they are very much soft on the person because they want to nurture the relationship, but they are hard on the issue. They want to get this sorted without having to give in. Their position, rather than changing or digging in, they focus on interest instead of positions. And this is absolutely key to the way that you then structure a negotiation. Resolution, instead of looking for one side or the other, they're trying to invent options which will help us create a mutual gain. And lastly, criteria, instead of yielding or applying pressure, they insist on using an objective criteria, yielding to principle, not to pressure. And in terms of the principle negotiation, on the right-hand side there, that's very much the areas that Fisher and Urey focus on. They present 4 principles of negotiation. Separating the people from the problem, focusing on interest, not positions, inventing options for mutual gain, and insisting on using objective criteria. So let's take a look at each of these as we go through. So number 1, separating people from the problem. We've touched on this already. It's all about taking the relationship and trying to take that away so that we don't become emotional. He talks about, or they talk about very much in the book, there's emotion, there are perceptions that get involved with a relationship. So it is important to try to just separate that and concentrate on what we actually need to deal with. Secondly, focusing on the interests, not the positions. They use the example of a library where two men are quarrelling in a library. One wants to open the window, the other one wants it closed. Enter the librarian. She asks one, why do you want the window open? Well, to get some fresh air. This is his interest, getting fresh air. She asks the other one, why do you want it closed? Well, to avoid a draft. This is his interest, to avoid the draft. After thinking for a moment, she opens a window in the next room, i.e. bringing in the fresh air, but without the draft. Very much the two interests of the two men are the desire for fresh air and the desire to avoid draft. The men's positions, therefore, in their mind, was window open or window closed. So they were taking positions, not thinking about their interests. The authors of the book say that we need to focus not on whether the window in their room is open or closed, but how we can meet the needs for fresh air and to avoid a draft. More often than not, unfortunately, we tend to focus on interests, and therefore we're not looking for that creative solution. So when we communicate in a negotiation, it's important to communicate exactly what our interests are. We can't assume that we know what they are. We can't assume that they're the same as our interests. We need to have a strong discussion, and this is a vital step in how to negotiate a win-win. Some of the interests, rather than the positions, could be things around their security, either for themselves or for the business, their economic well-being. There could be even softer things, such as a sense of belonging, a sense of recognition, or a need for a certain amount of control about what's going on. So some of these interests will certainly be affecting what we want from the actual negotiation. Thirdly, inventing options for mutual gain. The problem often with a negotiation, it comes down to one thing, and that's invariably price. And if it's all about price or percentage of rebate or whatever it may be, and I'm here and you're there, how on earth can we get to a price that's in the middle without compromising? And this is the issue. If we're always compromising, there could be a resentment along the way. So the key to actually gaining this is to try to broaden out the options. It's becoming more creative in the way that we present this. Because if there are different variables or tradables that we can start to introduce to a negotiation, it gives us much more chance to prevent giving away something that's important, but still create a sense of win-win for both parties. On the program, we talk about very much variables, and we talk about the fact that it's low cost to you and a high value to the customer. And if we can list all of the sort of variables, tradables that we can throw in and start to identify the ones that are low cost, high value, rather than the ones that are normally given away, which is the high cost to us. Giving away margin is high cost. Potentially extending credit terms could be high cost to the business. Can we create some other variables that we can throw in, which still gives the customer a sense of win-win without having to give away all of the family silver? So very much the problem with negotiation is often it's a single outcome. Try to create multiple outcomes which create a sense of win-win. And the fourth principle of negotiation is using objective criteria. And this is where we start to have a shared search to create this criteria. We very much need to keep an open mind on both parties. And lastly, we should never be given into pressure, threats or bribes. Okay, we need to set out a clear objective criteria that will meet both parties' needs. But what's some of the problems when one of the party doesn't want to play? Or actually, if one of the parties has a lot more power in a negotiation than the other? Well, this is where the term BATNA comes from. It was created within the book by Fisher and Urey, and it stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Or what I like to think of it as, the best alternative to no agreement. What would happen if we didn't agree a deal right now? What options, what alternatives would we have? Now, this is not to be confused with what are the options in the negotiation. This is very much if we did not agree a deal right now with you, what alternatives do I have? And the more alternatives I can come up with, and the stronger those alternatives are, the better my power in the negotiation itself at the time will be. Because if I know that I've got other options that I can turn to if you decide not to go with this, it increases the amount of strength and power that I have. For example, if I was buying a home and it was the only property that came up in that village, and it's the only one that's come up for the last 10 years, and it's our perfect dream home. It's next to the school that we want to send the kids to. It's got exactly the size garden that we're after. It's the perfect village. There's a great social life in the village. And quite frankly, we would love to be living here. What's my alternative? Well, not a huge amount, quite frankly. Therefore, in the negotiation for that property, it's probably weaker than the one whereby the house next door is up for sale. Well, do you know what? I've probably got a much better chance of negotiating with this person because I've got an alternative there. Or there's another village next door which is still near the same school, that still has a great social life, a great pub, etc., etc., etc. So understanding your BATNA is vital. And key mediators, they always talk about, look, what is your alternative? Because at the moment you're going to court, okay? That's not a particularly great alternative. So what's your alternative to doing a deal here and now? So that's the summary of the book, Getting to Yes. The key is all about principled negotiation, not positioning negotiation, because that very much puts you into a position that you cannot back away from and ultimately will lead to a compromise in some way. So I urge you to play around with principled negotiation. Good luck creating those win-win deals, and we'll speak to you next time. Thank you.